Dear students, you are welcome for yet another topic. I'm called Moses Wanchiri. Today we are going to discuss another topic called schizophrenia, and our topic today, our session today, will follow the following objectives. One, we are expected by the end of this session to be able to define schizophrenia. The second objective will be that by the end of this session, you should be able to describe the causes of schizophrenia. And objective 3 is to describe the signs and symptoms of schizophrenia. And lastly, by the end of this session, you are expected to be able to describe the management of schizophrenia. Now, to start, schizophrenia is a brain disorder that affects the way the person thinks, the way the person acts, and the way the person sees the world. In other words, it affects the way the person thinks. Maybe as an opening remark, in this condition or this disease, the person is always struggling to organize his thoughts. And due to that struggle to organize thoughts, you realize that most of the symptoms that will follow will be because of the person being unable to organize his thoughts. And therefore, we are saying that it will affect the way he acts and the way he thinks, the way he sees the world. What are the causes of schizophrenia? In fact, the cause of schizophrenia is not known. And sometimes when we say so, our friends, the traditional healers, sometimes quickly say that they know. But professionally, the cause of schizophrenia is not known. But research suggests that there are several factors that affect the person and end up with the symptoms of schizophrenia. Some of these factors that are implicated are physical, some of the factors are genetic, some of the factors are psychological, and others are environmental. And a combination of these ones end up with the causation of schizophrenia. Probably, let us talk about the genetic. The genetic factor, actually when we talk of genetic, a person quickly thinks of a gene. It is true that this condition, schizophrenia, is known to run in families, but then there is no isolated gene known to be causing schizophrenia. Actually, it appears to be predisposed by an abnormal level of dopamine. And the abnormal levels of dopamine, one's ability, one's predisposition to produce abnormal levels of dopamine in the body can be passed on from parent to offspring. And as you could be aware, dopamine is one of the neurotransmitters that is implicated in the causation of dopamine. And therefore, genetically, the predisposition, one's ability to produce a lot of dopamine can be passed on from parent to offspring, and therefore a genetic predisposition. But also, as we said in our opening remark, we said that one of the causes is psychological. It is known that stressful life events such as interpersonal conflict, things like loss, frustration, disappointment, failure, among others, are known to occur just before the person breaks down. So psychological factors are also known to be they are known to be one of the causes of schizophrenia. At the same time, there are physical factors. Physical factors, for example, childbirth. If a lady is predisposed to producing a lot of dopamine, and then he goes through the stress of childbirth, it is likely that during or even after birth, this person may break down into an episode of schizophrenia. At the same time, physical diseases that cause stress to the body can make somebody to break down and get this condition, schizophrenia. But we know also, as we talked earlier, the other factor is environmental. Things like those ones that can cause stress in one's life. Things like migration, things like urbanization. Remember urbanization, so many people are coming to town, and remember at this time when we have COVID-19, the people are staying in homes, they are not moving anywhere, they have poor living conditions. All those are stressors, and you find that a person who is predisposed can easily break down. So urbanization is a problem. Things like floods, other catastrophes like wildfires, mudslides, all these ones can make a person to break down. So it is, as it sounds like it is fine or professional for us to say that schizophrenia is caused by a combination of factors, some of which are not actually known. So schizophrenia can be caused by a combination of factors, some of which are not clearly known. Now, let us discuss we go to our next objective, which is the signs and symptoms of schizophrenia. How can we know that the person is having schizophrenia? These people, as we said earlier, they have confused thoughts, and therefore this confused thought leads to disorganized speech. Remember, as I said earlier in our opening remark, I said that people with schizophrenia are always struggling all the time to organize their thoughts. And because they are struggling to organize their thoughts, that one, it comes a time when they are unable really to make their thoughts to be like a normal person, and therefore it makes their thoughts to be disorganized. So you may find that their speech ends up jumbled. The way they speak is very hard to follow and very hard to make sense out of what the information they are giving. For that matter, the form of thought that they may be having may be the form that is having loosening overthinking association. These patients may have word salads, may have circumstantiality, or sometimes they may even have flight of ideas. Loosening of association is when a person jumps from one topic to another without a connection between one statement to the other. And word salad is gross loosening of association to the extent that even the grammatic content in a sentence is lost. Circumstantiality is when a patient digresses into unnecessary, irrelevant details before coming to the point of discussion. In fact, people who listen to people with schizophrenia, they are always waiting to know what the person is going to say. What is he meaning? What is he talking about? The person is really digressing into unnecessary details before coming to the point of this discussion. And at a lesser extent, they may have flight of ideas. These patients may also have thought alienation. Thought alienation is when a patient feels like their own thoughts are in some way no longer within their control. One who thought is in some way no longer within his own control. Therefore, the patient gets what we call thought echo or audible thoughts. The patient is having a thought, but then he hears his own thought being echoed back, or his thoughts are audible. They are heard loudly by other people. Then he may also have thought broadcasting. Thought broadcasting, in contrary to thought echo or audible thought, is when thoughts are known by other people before telling them. The person is there, is having his own thoughts, but other people know his thoughts without doing what? Without telling them. The patient may also have thought insertion. In other words, thoughts are put into his mind. That means that the thoughts onto which he is making actions actually don't belong to him. He's acting on behalf of other people who are the owners of the thoughts. And at the same time, he may also have thought withdrawal, when his own thoughts are taken away and he remains blank. So that's what we call thought alienation. And under the thought alienation, we have 4 thoughts. We have the thought echo, which is sometimes called audible thoughts. We have the thought broadcasting, which is another one. Then we have thought insertion, and then we have thought withdrawal. Then the patient may also have what we call delusions. A delusion is a belief that is firmly held by a patient on inappropriate grounds. A belief firmly held by a patient on inappropriate grounds, or a false belief that is not true to fact and cannot be corrected by any means of reasoning or logical argument, and it is not in line with one's social, educational, religious, or even cultural background. The person just comes out with a belief, and this belief is not backed up by social background, educational background, or even culture, or even the social, cultural, educational, and religious background. So that is a delusion. And in this case, we are having this patient having several types of delusions. And the first type of delusion that we are going to discuss is the bizarre delusion. A bizarre delusion is one that is not possible in life. A person believes something that is not possible in life. I could have given you an example earlier. A patient who was somebody's wife, and he started accusing her husband for conniving with some people, and they take her ovaries to hatch fish. Can you imagine that? A person's ovaries are being taken to hatch fish. That is a delusion that is not possible in life. You may have some people believing that they were twins and they were born with a snake. Maybe they are twins, but the twin is a lion. We don't have capacity to produce lions, and a person does not have capacity to produce a snake, which lays eggs anyway, and circles the snakes lays eggs, and is being produced by a person who produces a human being and then circles. Such things are really bizarre. They are weird. Bizarre means weird. So those are bizarre delusions. So you realize that patients with schizophrenia at times have bizarre delusions, but they may also have non-bizarre delusions. And non-bizarre delusions are those delusions that are really possible in life, but they appear like a person is just mistaken. One of them can be persecutory delusion. A persecutory delusion is when a person believes that he's being hunted, he's being framed, he's being stalked, or is being tricked. Persecutory. In other words, these people are doing some things that are about to injure him. Then we have also referential delusions, or delusions of reference, whereby the person believes that the public forms of communication, like song lyrics, gestures of a TV host, and sometimes they have special messages just for him. The person believes that the messages, maybe in the songs, maybe in a TV presenter, are having special implications or special messages just for him. Those are referential delusions, or delusions of reference. But we have also somatic delusions, whereby the person thinks that his body, or he has bizarre health problems, like he may believe that he has worms under the skin. He may believe that his blood has changed color. He may believe that there are diseases that he's suffering from that cannot be known by any other person or even treated. So those are somatic delusions. Then we have also erotomanic delusions. In this delusion, the person believes that, or they are even convinced that a celebrity is in love with them, or is writing them love letters, or is having special messages that is giving to them, or even sometimes they may believe that their partner is cheating them. So those are erotomanic delusions. We have also religious delusions, and this is when we even wonder the clear-cut line, because between one being very religious and maybe what we are talking about, the religious delusion. This is when the person starts believing that he has special relations with God. You've heard people who even believe that they go to heaven and then come back. They have special communication with God. They know things because they have special communication before they happen. Sometimes they even believe, they tell us that they have called God. They can talk to God on phone. Those are religious delusions. Then we have the grandiose delusions. The grandiose delusions are type of delusions that make where the patient believes that he is a major figure on the world stage. He's a major figure on the world stage. He can be a major figure as an entertainer. He can be a major figure as a politician. Those are grandiose delusions. Some people even think sometimes that they are Jesus. Others have even claimed, to the severity of this condition, they have claimed that they are God. So those are the grandiose delusions. Then this condition can also occur with auditory hallucinations. Auditory hallucinations is when a person hears a voice without an external stimuli that is producing that voice. There is no object, there is nobody talking, but the person hears the voice. And this voice is specific to him alone. There is no any other person that hears the what? The voice. And for schizophrenia, these voices are of two types. We have one type of voice called second person auditory hallucinations. And in these hallucinations, it means that the voice is directly communicating with the patient. Supposing we have voice here and the patient is here. The voice directly communicates to the patient. In other words, it is either ordering the patient or commanding the patient, because it is talking directly to the patient. And the special characteristic with this voice, it is that it is a superior voice. The patient has no capacity. He cannot refuse. It is superior and the person is obliged to obey. The voice can command him, walk, and he has to do that. Run, he has to do that. Kill him, and he has to do that. That is second person auditory hallucination. But we have also what we call the third person auditory hallucination. Third person auditory hallucination. Third person. Here we have one voice and another voice there. And then our patient is there. Yeah? We have voice here. And these voices are communicating within themselves. And then the patient is the listener. The patient, this time, is the what? The listener. And this form of third-person auditory hallucination can be in two forms. It can be voices that discuss the patient. For example, he is very ugly. Oh, he's beautiful. He's handsome. And you see the patient even receiving the voices, sometimes with a smile, because he's listening. Sometimes these voices are discussing within themselves and he's listening. They are sometimes telling him, they are discussing among themselves bad things. So the patient is the third person, but there is voice one, telling probably the public, or there is a voice addressing another voice. So they discuss among themselves. But this voice, apart from discussing, they can also make running commentaries. In other words, they comment on the person's action. He's running, he's seated, he's talking, he's thinking, he's doing this. So the person gets disgusted because the voices are commenting. So in other words, we have the second person and third person auditory hallucinations, but the third person hallucinations can be in the form of voices discussing or voices making a running commentary. The other symptom is passivity phenomena. A passivity phenomena is when the person believes that is under control. His actions, his feelings, his movements, his impulses, his thoughts are being controlled by an external body. And therefore, he is not in control of his own actions. So the acts, the impulses, the movements, the emotions, the thoughts are typically controlled by something else. And you can even say it is controlled by computers. Some patients can even complain that they have put gadgets in my room to monitor and control me. That's what we call passivity phenomena. And in our usual, in our community, you've heard people who say that there is a demon or spirit that has commanded or controls me, and it has told me to become a traditional healer. That's how this disease occurs in our community. But we have also these patients having problems with concentration. Concentration is the ability of one to follow the trend of events, following the chronology of events. That is trouble with concentration. Then these patients also have problems with movement. Sometimes they seem to be jumpy. Sometimes they make same movements over and over again, what we describe as stereotyped movements. Sometimes they may perfectly be still for hours in one place, which is termed as catatonic behavior. And sometimes they make awkward postures, they become mute and immobile, and that's what we refer to as catatonic stupor. These patients also may have bizarre motor behavior. They have odd behavior in which there might be outbursts of laughter without apparent reason, of course. A person is there and just ends up laughing. They are sometimes restless. They have episodes of excitement, sometimes that may end up into aggression. These patients may also have a reduction of the normal actions of the normal mental state. For example, they may have inexpressive facial expressions, inexpressive faces, whereby they do not react to the emotions of what is happening. They may have blank looks or blank stare or blank gazes. Their speech may be monotone or may be monosyllabic. You know, monotone is when a person is just like murmuring, and monosyllabic, he talks one word after the other. Then they may have a few gestures which seemingly show lack of interest in the environment and inability to feel pleasure or sometimes to act spontaneously. And in psychiatry, what I've been explaining is called as follows. One is blunting or flat affect. We have alogia. Alogia is poverty of speech or a person having inappropriate brief responses. Then we have asociality, which is apparent lack of desire for company of others. Then we have anhedonia. Anhedonia is apparent inability to show or feel pleasure. Then there is also aversion, the lack or the failure to initiate goal-directed activities. The person therefore is having no willpower. He is not spontaneous and is therefore inactive. Then we have anagia, lack of energy to do any activity of daily living. And this one is the one that causes them in most cases to become unkempt because they cannot initiate any activity, including that one of cleaning themselves. Then we have apathy, which is lack of interest in the world or even other people. As a result of the above, the person thought is disorganized, and sometimes you see them even avoiding eye contact, and sometimes they neglect their bodies. Now, from the above symptoms we have discussed, in schizophrenia, there are symptoms that are cardinal in the diagnosis of this condition. And these ones are referred to as positive symptoms. If we talk of positive symptoms, it means also there are those that are negative. Now, positive symptoms of schizophrenia are those ones that appear to be a surplus of the day-to-day experience of a normal person with a normal mental state. They are an additional or a surplus to or in excess of what the experience of a person with a normal mental state. And the negative symptoms are those ones that appear to be a reduction of the normal responsiveness, motivation, or socialization, speech, and movement of a person. Those are considered to be negative symptoms. Now, among the positive symptoms, we have a simple way of remembering them. One, we have auditory hallucinations. And the auditory hallucinations, they are three voices. As we said earlier, there is the second person auditory hallucination. There is the third person auditory hallucination in the form of voices discussing, and third person auditory hallucination in the form of voices making a running commentary. So there are three voices. Then we have thought disorders. Remember the thought alienation, and they are thought echo, or sometimes called audible thoughts. We have thought broadcasting, we have thought insertion, and we have thought withdrawal. And then we have 5 delusions, and the delusions are paranoid delusion, nihilistic delusion, bizarre delusions, persecutory delusions, and then referential or delusions of reference. And then on top of that, those are 5 delusions. Then we have passivity phenomenon, and those ones will form what we call the positive symptoms of schizophrenia, or they are sometimes called Schneider's first rank symptoms of schizophrenia. Should they appear in a person even before, within 1 month of appearance, then we can diagnose schizophrenia. But we have also negative symptoms, and the negative symptoms are alogia, brief empty responses or lack of speech. Then we have anagia, lack of energy, even that one to do activities of daily living, and hedonia, failure to feel pleasure. Then aversion, failure to initiate goal-directed activities. And then we have apathy, disinterest in the environment or being in relationship with any other person. And then asociality, which is sometimes called withdrawal. And those are the negative symptoms of schizophrenia. Now, briefly, we are going to talk about the management. And the main issues in management, therefore, are to maintain optimal nutrition status of the person, because some of these patients are paranoid and they may not want to share food with others because of fear that they may be poisoned. There is also need to maintain the personal hygiene. There is also need to promote social interaction with others. There is also need to prevent or the prevention of personal injury or injury to others. Then also to promote optimal motor behavior, behavior that is expected of a person of normal mental state, including that one that is to do with activities of daily living. Then alleviation of delusions, and then the alleviation of hallucinations. All these management principles that I've talked about have detail in them. So I invite you to read the detailed notes that are available to you, such that you can have all those management skills that are mentioned here in details. And then thereafter, we are going to have this assignment. One, from the discussion that we have had now and the notes that are provided to you, do the following. In one page, write 5 things that you have learned from this lesson today. You write 5 things that you have learned from this lesson today. And I don't expect you to list for me signs and symptoms and you tell me that you have learned those 5 things. There are things, there is a lesson that you have learned from what we have discussed and the notes you have read. Then you write for me 5 things that you expected to find, but unfortunately you have not found them in this lesson. You expected to have got them from the notes, you expected maybe to have got them from my discussion, but you haven't seen them. So you list 5, state 5 of them. And then you state 5 things that you must do in the management of a patient with schizophrenia. Thank you very much. I expect you to write those 5 things on one page because there are 15 statements. I expect 15 statements from you. You put the name and your student's number. You put the topic, which is schizophrenia. You put your name, and then you put your student's number, and then write 5 things you have learned or lessons you have learned from what we have discussed. You write 5 things that you expected to get, but you have not got them. And then you write to me 5 things that are cardinal that you think must be done while managing the patient with schizophrenia. Thank you very much. I hope to meet you again in another session. Thank you.